And we're taking a closer look at that market action with Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore. Viv, a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you and your viewers.
All right, Viv, red screens all around in Europe and SA, and it's actually sharply in the red. Keen to get your thoughts on what we could be trying to digest today.
I think we had some disappointing numbers from Alphabet and Tesla yesterday. Tesla, I think, fell more than 10%. Alphabet basically had one of the biggest falls we've had in multiple years in a single day. These came after some disappointing numbers from both companies. Tesla's year-on-year, auto revenue fell about 7%. We saw Alphabet also have issues with rising costs and not very sharp increases in growth of revenue as well. And when those big companies fall, you find the S&P down as well because they are one of the magnificent, or they are two of the magnificent seven companies. These companies have been leading the stock market high over the last year and a bit. And other companies that as in similar sector, Nvidia, Microsoft also fell. So we had the US under a bit of pressure, and they kind of fed through to Asia this morning, and then I think that's also hurting us today as well.
Also interesting here to see our miners are sharply down. Viv, I'm wondering what could be driving that. I think if I look at just the bottom 10 of the top 100, 8 of those 10 stocks are miners. I'm wondering if that could do anything with China or just global sentiments around the commodity cycle.
It's a combination of both. I mean, I think global sentiments are obviously worrying, but I think that China is the big driver in the commodity sector. And we've seen, for instance, just a few days ago when the Chinese cut interest rates, the market actually went down with that news, showing that it's not just a case of they like to have low interest rates; it's that they think low interest rates are an indicator of a much weaker economy than they had feared. That economy at the moment is in probably the worst shape it's been in several years. It's really not recovered from COVID like much of the rest of the world has. They basically stayed in lockdown longer. They had more issues around what they did, and then I think some of the moves after COVID, with regards to the tech sector, etc., and as well as the impact of effectively sanctions from the US by increasing tariffs and blocking export of certain chips and so on, are continuing to hurt that economy.
Also, I will tell you, the Rand seems to be weakening every so slightly every day. We're getting closer to that, I think, 19 market, 1848 for now. I did expect us to be just enjoying a little bit more strength now. I'm wondering if a US cutting cycle might be the catalyst we need, or if at this point, it doesn't matter what happens globally because of our own idiosyncratic issues here at home, the Rand remains weak.
Yeah, look, I don't think there's any big news events coming locally. We've had the big, I think, pivot event or uncertain event, which was the election, and that kind of worked out as well as the market could have hoped it would. And that's one of the reasons we saw the Rand strengthen as it has. We're about 1850 just about there, and it's been at 1850 earlier this month as well, or early in the last month as well. So the last month is kind of been between 1850 and 18 or so. And I don't know if we can for certain say that this range is going to be broken right now. If it bounces back down to 1850, back to 1820, or even close to 18, we may see there's a new channel being created, and that might be something to be, looked at going forward. I think we do need to see the US cut rates, and they're likely to do that in September. And I think once that happens, and we start, following them along the path, then we can see maybe a longer-term trend for the currency.
Do you think we'll cut in September? I've seen some economists really going with that, with absolute conviction, and even it being priced in some markets.
Yeah, look, I think we'll probably cut as soon as the US starts cutting. There's enough indicators out there. The fact that we had our inflation number coming at 5, just below it was the last number, 5.1, I think was 5.2. The fact that the economy remains incredibly weak, the fact that unemployment remains a huge issue in the country. And I think the government would prefer to see, slightly lower interest rates at the moment if they can afford it. There's some of the Reserve Bank, quite frankly. It's not just a case of the Reserve Bank being pressured by government. It's a case of the Reserve Bank saying that, inflation is not a huge issue, like 5% or so. Not at the 4.5% that they want as an ideal target, but definitely between the 3 to 6 range that they're targeting. Then I think it's a reasonable assumption to be made that they would like to cut rates as soon as possible.
I would like to look at some company news today here on the local front. I want to start with British American Tobacco. Of course, missing some of their targets there, but I guess they're still hopeful about the regulatory environment being supportive to them in the medium to long term. Also saw basic earnings per share increase still 14%. Markets shared that counter. It's up 4%. Keen to get your thoughts here.
Yeah, look, British American tobacco, the tobacco industry is basically been written off a while ago because of the issues around, obviously the health concerns and so on. And they've tried other things like, obviously the vaping and whatnot, and it's not really, taken off as much as they would hope. But that being said, a company that pays you some money out, and it's done reasonably well this year as well. It's up about 8% or so for the year, up about 3+% today. I do think that, longer term, this is not going to be, of course, an industry that's going to be growing. This is not the next Nvidia or something. But in terms of a solidly performing business, if you can stomach the ethical considerations, it's not a bad company.
Then let's talk about Anglos. Of course, it's a bit of a consolidation of what we've seen already there. They've gone on to post a set of numbers there, and it does show that outside of the cycle and what we're seeing with Woodsmith, they aren't mining too badly.
Oh no! I mean, look, I've always said that our miners are pretty much one of the best functioning, sectors in the country operationally. They're not really in the business of doing things very badly. You're not going to have like major missteps in competence from these guys. They're smart people. They work in the industry. It's very easy to figure out who knows what they're doing and who doesn't. The problem that they have is the fact that they can't control the price of their output. The price can go up and go down, and that kind of determines what they are getting. The Woodsmith one is an issue, the write down. But they've said they've seen an uptick in copper and iron ore and so on, that might be a bit positive going forward. I do think that if you look at, for instance, that through BHP Billiton focusing on copper, and look at some of the assumptions being put forward. I mean, I don't know if you saw the Llama 3 release that came out a couple of days ago from Jules' Facebook, and the paper they released. It's a very long paper. It's almost 100 pages long. But one of the things they were talking about in that paper was the fact that the fluctuations across their data centers are so large that they're affecting the stability of the grid. Because of the amount of money going into these kind of data centers, they're going to be probably accounting for almost 10% of U.S. Electricity demand in the next, say, 4 or 5 years. In that scenario, things like copper are going to be in high demand.
Well, very interesting indeed. We'll be watching how that plays out. We're so vested in that mining sector. I'm keen to get your stock pick today. Which count are you loving?
Look, I think despite the pain it's been through, I think Alphabet is an interesting company. I think people always undervalue its other businesses. They always look at the search business, which of course is a hugely profitable business. And YouTube, I mean, because YouTube alone, I think, is probably a more valuable company on its own than Netflix. I would say that's quite an easy argument to make. But the other stuff they're doing, things like the isomorphic labs, or partnering with Novartis and partnering with Eli Lilly around the bio. Those kind of things, I think, are not fully priced to the value of the company. So Alphabet would be my pick.
Wonderful, Viv. Thank you so much for getting us going today. It's been a pleasure hearing from you. That was your midday markets update with Rand Swiss Offshore's Viv Govender.